So today we have Impulse against Genghis. Impulse is on check shift, which is a everything but white sort of control combo deck. Genghis is on the classic Jund Pyrolancer. The check shift deck is set up in such a way that it can do long grindy games and then just sort of win with a scape shift into Valakut for a bunch of mountains and blast you out that way. If Valakut's no longer available for whatever reason, you can also get Field of the Dead and just make a ridiculous amount of zombies. Or you can kind of just play a normal, slow, grindy control matchup. Oath is in there. The Oath targets vary a bit. They sort of support the long-term game plan of getting more lands out and just winning the game at some point. But, you know, it's a very interesting deck. It has a lot of lines and routes to victory, and it's been doing pretty well in this current metagame. But Jund is a classic. You've got plenty of disruption and great threats, so it's not like Genghis is out of his element in this matchup. Can vary a lot though. It looks like Impulse here has a very removal heavy hand. I can see Cut Down, Blood Chief's Thirst, and a Abrupt Decay just in hand currently, which is a nice suite of answers for most creatures. I mean, there's a handful that can be out of range of Cut Down and Abrupt Decay that Genghis has access to, but most of them are going to be hittable. And then Thirst, baseline caps out at 2, but can be kicked for taking out anything. So Genghis is probably going to have to find something pretty sticky to get through this, to fight through all this removal. And in the meantime, Impulse is going to be just sort of keeping the board controlled, probably tutor for some valuable engine card, maybe Life from the Loam, maybe I actually don't know what his points are on this deck. He could be on Ancestral, Intuition, Vampiric Ancestral could make sense, but I don't know if he's got a wider spread or not. Genghis, of course, is got his points spread out into the Land Disruption package. He's got Crop Rot and Strip Mine to kind of take the slower decks out of the game potentially with Strip Locks, or just get some nice disruption going against people who kept land light hands. The Void Walker was never going to stick around very long, especially given that Impulse's deck is set up to try and make good use of the graveyard. But yeah, he takes it out with a Thirst, which means if Genghis can find something out of cut down range and more than 3 casting cost, which is not a lot of cards in his deck, it has the potential to stick now. I imagine that Impulse here is holding up the fetch land to have a Vampiric represented in case something goes horribly awry. But it looks like Genghis is just going to reanimate that Voidwalker and force him to, either cut down it or untap and throw the Abrupt Decay its way. Reanimate is a pretty sweet card for just sticking back out cheap threats. Unearth does essentially the same thing most of the time without life loss, but the fact that you can do something like Thoughtseize, a nice, big, juicy, threatening creature, and then reanimate out of your opponent's yard is not irrelevant. That is a very nice line when that comes up. So it looks like he's going to go for the cut down since Genghis has already put the Voidwalker away. Yeah. And then we have untaps. I am curious if he's going to go for the upkeep Vampiric for something. If he is on Ancestral, upkeep Vampiric for it would make sense, but he does not. Even Loam here would make some sense as well. So he just lays a Triome and holds up mana, so he can Abrupt Decay most of the things that Genghis is going to be able to do, with the option of doing Vampiric EOT. So Genghis needs to find either something to clear the decay out and stick something, or just start jamming multiple threats. And he looks like he's just passing. It's probably not where he wants to be. There's no EOT Vampiric. Given that Genghis is holding up 3 mana... Oh, no. Vampiric is happening, but he did it in his own upkeep with 2 mana held up, so he can have Abrupt Decay for a potential opposition agent, since Genghis is holding up the 3 mana. Getting Oppo'd would be brutal, so he's just playing very, very carefully and making sure he can answer the answer, essentially. And then we see Wrenn 6, very likely the Vampiric tutor target, and Wrenn is going to start picking up fetch lands and keep making land drops. Genghis goes for an Entomb. He could get a... let's see. Oh, he's going to Entomb and Unholy Heat the Wrenn 6, and he entombs Life from the Loam. Given that he only has 1 fetch land in the yard right now, it's not at its best, but Loam can dredge something good potentially too, and try and hopefully like hit a wasteland or strip mine and start really constricting the resources that Impulse has access to. He does not dredge any lands, unfortunately, but since he's got the Loam, might as well pick up the fetch and keep making land drops. Loam being a reasonable way to accrue some card advantage, although Genghis is not set up to really accrue card advantage from it in the same way that Impulse has, more tri-lands for cycling, and it's just more other value lands. I have to assume there's like an Otawara and some of the other effect lands in there, whereas Genghis, I'm pretty sure, is on Boseiju, and I don't think is playing any of the other ones. So Impulse is now going for a Mystical, recently reduced to 1 point, for a Life of the Loam of his own. So we're going to have a lot more benefit on Impulse's side, being able to pick up, I think, all 3 lands, since that yard is pretty well stocked. And then, just pulling way ahead as far as card advantage goes. Impulse is still sitting on the Ponder. That was revealed off the very first Inquisition. Hasn't felt the need to cast it, although is going to go for it right now, it looks like. One of the nice things with Loam is you can actually use it to dredge away cards you don't want, or if you see lands you do want in the bin, you can use it to dredge off of the draw there. So it looks like he might be actually doing a double Loam turn, since he binned 2 lands off the Ponder and is cracking the fetch. He's going to be able to do another full-sized Loam. Genghis has 2 cards left in hand. And still just the 1 fetch land in yard. It's not a great spot to be in. But there are some, very strong threats in his deck, and the only non-land card that Impulse has left is Abrupt Decay. So it looks like Genghis is doing Green Sun Zenith for 4, which will mean whatever 4-drop he's going for is going to be out of Decay's range. Now, as far as 4-drop green creatures, Genghis is on probably Questing Beast. I would imagine maybe... Oh, Undermountain Adventure, yes. Getting the initiative going here, obviously, is going to be pretty good, given that Impulse is still on no threats. And you get to go grab a basic and have it start ticking down. I don't think Impulse is on any hasty creatures, but he does hit Hour of Promise, and given that he was already at 5 lands, this looks like it's going to be like Field and something else, making 2 zombies. Not going for the desert trigger, so it's just going to be 2 zombies if he does do the field plus whatever. But with field going and Loam in the yard, that's going to be a lot of board pressure and going to make it pretty tricky to hold on to the initiative for Genghis, unless he can rip something to answer answer those zombies. And Genghis is not on a lot of board wipe effects, realistically. But he does go for the Forge. And, so, yeah, like, the Forge, getting some power on there, leading into the trap room for 5 life might be enough, but, these creatures are not going to get through very likely. And he's going to get another zombie off of the fetch land end of turn, meaning he's got 3. Now, with Dreadhorde, with Trap, there's a Chain Lightning that got, dredged from Loam, but that's going to... Oh, it looks like he's doing Mystic. He's going to Mystic for the Hour Promise and cast it. I don't know if he's had enough mountains to Valakut yet, though. I see 1, 2, 3. Yeah, he's only at like 3 mountains in play, so he'd have to get Valakut and a mountain, and then it's still 1 off from activating. Although he does have fetch land, so he can get 1 Valakut activation this turn. But also just making a bunch of zombies. We've got 3 non-summoning sick and 2 fresh ones. So the board is building up very quickly for Impulse. He does play the fetch land and now has the option for a Valakut activation, but he just passes. Genghis goes to the trap room, 5s him. Dreadhorde swing to recast Chain Lightning would be down to 4, although Impulse would be able to send the chain back. Although that would let... Alright, well, Impulse grabs a mountain to get rid of the Dreadhorde before it can even try and attack and get any chain shenanigans going. And also make a fresh zombie. And we're now 6 zombies versus the Undermountain Adventurer and Vampire Hexmage. And with Loam in the yard, it's just going to be a steady stream of more mountains. Probably fetch lands into mountains to get extra zombies and knock Genghis down from 15 to 0 pretty quick. Ooh, although Genghis has now hit Hex Drinker and leveled it up to 4/4 and can potentially get it to not quite Progenitus level pretty fast. If you wanted to tap the Undermountain Adventurer, that would be 7. I think it levels up at 8, so it's 1 away. But that does leave Impulse in a spot where he can't realistically Valakut it to death. And Genghis can kind of just untap, level it up the rest of the way, and then go to town with a protection from everything 6/6. Still not enough to kill Impulse, but it would mean Impulse is obligated to not use any fetch lands because that puts him into one-shot range. So that Hex Drinker actually potentially game-winning right now, putting Impulse in a very awkward spot. Okay, it looks like Genghis is deciding whether he wants to Undermountain or not. It's an interesting choice. I don't think there's much reason to do it because the difference between being at 7 counters and 4 is basically nothing. And having a blocker up could matter. I mean, there's 6 zombies out there. That's 3 of them getting through for 6 damage. And then plus the Valakut triggers could actually dish out a fair amount of damage in one turn. So he's just going to pay with his lands to get Drinker up to 5, meaning 3 away from protection from everything. And Impulse needs to find something to deal with the Hex Drinker probably pretty quick. He's going to Dredge Loam. Adding another fetch land into the yard. He will loam back 3 fetch lands. Oh, I guess he's holding up Arid Mesa, so he can get 2 mountains this turn, which means that he can answer the Hex Drinker with 2 fetches, although that's going to put him all the way down to 5. But that's better than taking 6 to the dome and not being able to activate a fetch ever again, most likely. So yeah, he puts out another fetch, cracks it, going to 6. Looks like he's drawn Green Sun Zenith? Oh, he cycled the Triumph and hit Zenith. So I guess Zenith probably grabs something. Prime time almost. Let's see if he goes fetch for mountain. Yeah, so if he can fetch, and then get the Green Sun and that that puts Genghis into dead from Valakut plus zombie swings. So that's most likely what's happening here. But he might have a different game plan in mind. He's thinking about it. Okay, no, it looks like he's shooting down the Hex Drinker, which is interesting. Maybe he's just out of mountains. Oh, Genghis is scooping it up either way. So we're going to head to game 2. All right, we're starting game 2. Genghis is opening with a Bauble activation. Get a peek at what's in Impulse's 7-card hand. And it is Vampiric. Okay, another Vampiric. So Genghis is just gonna fetch into Badlands, play Regavan, and pass. So if Impulse does not have an answer for this monkey, that would... No, he's got Flame Slash. A little bit of overkill. Regavan only having 1 toughness, 4 damage is probably more than necessary, but can never be too safe around tricky little monkeys like that. Genghis is going to land a Tarmogoyf, who is currently a 1, 2, 3, 4, 4, 5 on turn 2. Not too bad. Thanks to some fetch lands / monkey bauble. A nice, diverse graveyard package. So just playing some lands and passing. Looks like Impulse is jamming the Bosegio out as a mana source. Now Genghis can maybe do some hand disruption to add to Tarmogoyf's total, or maybe just try and apply more pressure with another creature or something. Looks like he's just going to bash for 4. And then play Cankerbloom. Cankerbloom gets mana leaked. Not long for this world. But the mana leak does push Goyf up to 5, 6. So perhaps playing the Cankerbloom pre-combat was worthwhile. And we see Impulse go land Oko. So probably have an Elk Goyf. Yes, the Goyf is now just a 3/3. And Oko is at 5 loyalty. Goyf is swinging. Not sure if it's going to be at Oko. I imagine so, though. Yes, Oko goes down to 2. And we get a Hex Drinker from Genghis. Is he going to level it up? Or is he going to try and cast something else? He plays Shadow Spear and then levels up once. So Oko can make food, although it's going to get cracked for enough to kill it without some removal or blockers. Abundant Growth on the Snow Swamp for Impulse. Fetch land. What is he going to do with the Oko? I guess Oko could elk the Shadow Spear. If Impulse is sitting on like a Toxic Deluge or something like that, that could very well be the game plan. Just make it a creature and clear the board. But if he's doing 1-for-1 removal, this is it's going to be a tricky spot. I know he has some like of the 3 damage board wipes. He's at least playing like 1 or 2 of them. So that might be an option too, like Sweltering Suns or something like that. But yeah, we got to see. He's fetching, trying to decide what the right land to get here is. When you're on a 4-color deck and you're playing an excess of mountains just to make sure you can lethal Valakut people, it can make it pretty tricky to decide what the right fetches are, especially if you're forced to go for untapped lands instead of triomes. But I'm sure he can figure it out, what his best option is. It is a Badlands. And he's going to Vampiric with it. Main phase Vampiric. I guess he has a cantrip, so he's going to find something and then make use of it immediately. Oh, he's changed his mind, and it is a Underground Sea. He's doing Underground Sea into Vampiric. And then Vampiricing, going to Cling to Dust. I assume Bobble to shrink Goyf, even though that's not really relevant anymore. And draw the card he wanted, which looks like it's a Fury, which is just enough to clear the board off and let Oko start pumping out food, which he does. He exiled Faithless Looting for the Fury. So Genghis is going to Cling. What is he going to cling? Cling the Cling? No, he goes for the fetch land. Reasonable. Oh, given the state of stuff, I might have clinged the Cling, just to avoid future card advantage escapes. But you are facing down Oko, so trying to stop the fetches that can do the most in this kind of a situation is certainly reasonable. As long as Oko gets to keep ticking away, things are not going to improve for Genghis. Genghis is not really a deck that's equipped to fight through a well-protected Oko. And given that he did not add a threat to the board this turn, yeah, so Impulse does cling the Cling to prevent future uses by Genghis. Sticks out another land. Is Oko making another food? Yes, there's another food. So more focused on getting Oko up there rather than getting a elk. We see Deathrite Shaman come down, get equipped by Shadow Spear. 2/3 Lifelinker. Not that helpful against a elk, but it's not nothing. Impulse does elk one of the foods. Probably just going to keep it back to block, would be my guess. And then, is he going to play something? He has a couple cards in hand. Not enough food to escape Cling again, currently. Okay, he casts Leovold. This is pretty solid. Just general creature to have. I don't think he's on any wheels or anything funky like that, but Leovold does make it very tough to get any advantage on removal. You're, giving them card draw every time you try and take something out. And, yeah, also turns off card draw. So we have fetch land into Fury for Genghis, which means probably Leovold biting it, but giving a card to Impulse. The Fury does get to stick around, but it's probably about to be an Elk, so having a 3/3 double striker that you can Shadow Spear is probably not happening. Impulse goes for the Entomb. I'm going to guess Life from the Loam being the choice. I would expect Loam just as an engine to get things rolling again, and also potentially provide some fuel for more Cling to Dusts. I didn't actually see what he put in the yard, because there's just Leovold straight under it. So, did he fail to find or something? That would be very peculiar. Okay, it looks like he's going to trade the food he has for the Fury. Reasonable. And then smash with the Elk. Which is not blocked. And then Chain Lightning on Deathrite. So Genghis has no creatures, is facing down a 3/3 double striker, an Elk, and plays Dragon Rage Channeler and suits it up with Shadow Spear. Dragon's Rage Channeler is Delirious, I think, because I see instant creature, land. Oh no, the bauble getting clinged earlier means that it's just a 1/1 right now. So getting bashed by Fury and Elk. Oko pumps out another food. And Genghis untaps. Does he pull anything good enough right now? He needs something very strong to get out of this spot. Okay, we have Stomp targeting Oko, I guess? Okay. Swing at Oko for 2 with the Shadow Spear. And then cast the giant post-combat, which can at least block the Fury. So Oko is out of the equation. But it is a 4/3 and a 2/2 up against the Fury and an Elk. If Impulse does swing, I expect he might just trade with the Elk with the Giant rather than chump block the Fury, because going to 2 is not great, but just losing a Giant for no benefit is not really going to help either. Impulse cracks the food at end of turn just to boost up his life total a little bit. 14-8. Yeah, he's just coming in with both creatures. Giant blocks the Elk, trading, and Fury knocks him to 2. Impulse casts a dress down post-combat to cycle it. Preordain, digging for some form of burn to finish it up right now, I expect. Bottom, did not hit it. Just plays a Taiga. And then Fatal pushes Dragon's Rage Channeler. Okay. Well, does Genghis have a way to answer this Fury, or at least stall it? It is Witherbloom Command. That does not kill Fury, unfortunately. And the drain for 2 is not enough to keep him alive through an attack, but he can pick up a land. Which I don't think helps that much unless he has... No, there's no land that's going to save him there. So yeah, he's just dead, unfortunately. Well, both sides fought hard. Oko that early without enough pressure to really, lock it off is just going to be tough to overcome, especially when your opponent's able to keep burning away most of your good creatures. So, not a huge shock there, but yeah, that's the check shift deck up against Jund. You arrive at a gate with 2 guards. Halt, traveler. You must solve our riddle to continue. Here we go. One of us only tells the truth. The other only tells lies. Jesus Christ, Daniel. I said I was sorry.